Bonjour tout le monde! Welcome back to We in France. You are here for part 2 of my recent Q&A. I've split it into 2 parts, with part 2 here containing the language learning questions, anything about language, learning French, and that sort of thing, just to split it into 2 parts so it's not too long. A few weeks ago, I asked you for questions on Facebook and on my YouTube channel here, and you delivered. So thank you to everyone who participated. I really appreciate that. And we're going to get right into it. All right, so Emmy's Cool Vids 123, she asks, did you start learning French before moving there? Is French difficult to learn? So a little bit on my background, I took French just for fun. You know, in high school, you had to pick a language elective. We all goofed off. You know, I learned
Bonjour, comment parlez-vous, je vais bien.
it was pitiful. It wasn't even French. So yeah, that was not serious. In college, I studied modern elementary, Irish 1, modern Gaelic. Seriously. If I had known I was moving to France, I would have picked French, but you know, hindsight's 2020. And then not until after college did I pick up French again, just for fun. I was hating my job in New York. I wanted to have some activities just for me, use my brain in a different way. So I started taking classes at the Alliance Française in Montclair, New Jersey, and had a wonderful teacher named Yvonne, and took classes once a week, but it wasn't serious at that point. Moving to France was not on my radar. So when I moved to France, I had an intermediate level of French on paper. When I was actually in front of actual French people trying to understand what they were saying and reply in real time, it was very difficult. It was a shock. I've made videos about that. So there was a bit of a ramp up period, probably about a 2-year ramp up period. For some people, that's going to be quicker. I'm very hard on myself, and I was kind of shy when it came to speaking when I first got here. I'm not a shy person, but people thought I was because I was scared to open my mouth, not wanting to make mistakes, and that did not serve me well at all. Is French difficult to learn? You know, it's a Romance language, so there are going to be some similarities. If you speak other ones like Spanish, the alphabet, the letters are the same as in English and many other languages. So that's just to say, I don't think French is as difficult as, say, maybe learning Russian or Greek with a completely different alphabet. You know, Asian languages, Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, I know Vietnam, a bunch of them are tonal. French is not tonal, so that's a plus because I think that could be really, really difficult for native English speakers to learn a tonal language. Yeah, but by no means is French easy. If it were easy, I'd speak perfectly, and I sure as heck do not. So yeah, no, it's not easy, but I think with dedication, really putting your mind to it, and then just showing up every day, you will learn and you'll get better, and that's what we could hope for, right? Progress, not perfection. One of the best ways to learn French is to get out of the classroom and listen to how actual French is spoken. One way to do that is with LingoPie, a language learning platform that blends entertainment and education. They make picking up a new language as fun as binge watching your favorite shows, and I am so happy to have LingoPie as today's video sponsor. Thank you to them. So first, there are no boring textbooks to read or impractical grammar drills here. You will learn by watching and listening to real-life French or one of the other 8 languages they offer in context. It is like having a personal language coach right in your pocket, and it's not just authentic TV shows and movies. There are audiobooks, podcasts, and even music as well, which will take you on a cultural journey in addition to just learning the language. Now, if you're like me, maybe you've watched shows in a foreign language, but the subtitles are either non-existent or they're not very good, and you get lost and you give up because you aren't understanding anything and you get frustrated. It's normal, but that won't happen here because you could watch a show with confidence. Every episode becomes an immersive language learning lesson with LingoPie's fun features like on-screen transcription, so you don't miss what's going on, including a very cool option to have the subtitles in French and English even at the same time. Also, the ability to click a word and see its meaning, and that'll get automatically saved to your flashcards. And then also my favorite, a microphone feature called Say It, where you can record yourself saying the words that you're hearing on screen and then have your pronunciation graded and judged to see how good you are. LingoPie has over 3,000 movies and shows, including Netflix shows, if you're a fan of that, making them one of the largest foreign language content catalogs in the world to teach languages through entertainment. You can search by content, by level, length, and fit some learning in whenever you have time, while cooking and eating, while relaxing on the couch, killing time while traveling, or whenever you want to take your language skills to the next level. So if you're ready to embark on your language learning adventure, please head over to LingoPie via my link below. You'll get a 7-day free trial, and you'll also get a special discount with over 70% 50% off lifetime plans, so there is never an end date to your language learning. Your future multilingual self will thank you. Now back to my Q&A. All right, Julia Lancaster 1516 asks, I'm learning French. I'll be in France for a few weeks this fall with the hopes of practicing and improving my speaking skills. My only hesitation is that I was recently told by my friend who taught at a French university and spoke excellent French, particularly Swiss French, that he still had some French native speakers pretend not to understand him because of his accent. Have you ever experienced this or know of someone who has? Okay, first off, I'm going to say there are people who are total jackasses everywhere, every country. Even generally nice people, you catch them on a bad day, you're going to have a bad interaction. We're all human. Okay. Now that said, there are also people who are perfectly nice and respectful and fine, and they are just not good with accents. Where if you get the intonation wrong, you get the pronunciation wrong, they just will not understand the sentence. And they mean well. They're not trying to be rude. And then there's this category, seems like what you just mentioned, of people who understand you perfectly well, but for whatever reason, they are pretending not to. That is something I have never encountered, but I've heard stories that, French people pretend not to understand me. And my question would be, are we sure that they're pretending to not understand, or is it a case of someone just not understanding the intonation? And I ask that question because in English, sometimes my French husband, Tom, he'll get the intonation wrong of a French word, and people who maybe aren't used to his accent, they won't understand what he said. Whereas, I'm like, of course, he just said mountains or maintenance, but he said mountains and maintenance. And combined with the overall accent effect on the sentence, it's like, oh yeah, we're going on vacation, we're going to the mountains, and with context, I think most people would pick up that he's saying mountains, not mountains. That's a mistake he's made 10 years ago, by the way. But I would say the vast, vast majority of French people are not purposely trying to not understand or like pretending to not understand you just to be a dick. I don't think that is a widespread thing. Tell me in the comments if people think this is the case. I think what is more likely to be the case is that someone just legit is not understanding what you're saying for whatever reason. Now, again, I'm not here to invalidate, that this never happened and everyone is sweet as pie. That's not the case. Refer to the first group of people that I mentioned, that there are rude people everywhere. But I think my thoughts are 99% of people are not purposely out to get you. I mean, a lot of people do not speak English very well. And if you're at least making the effort to speak French, a lot of people are relieved, like, oh, thank God, I don't have to try my English. So even if you have a terrible accent, terrible grammar, people are often relieved that you might speak a little bit of French. And if you speak French well, and you're speaking French well, and someone is just really being rude about it, that's a them problem. Do not let that mess with your confidence. Do not let that mess with your impression of who you are. That is a them problem. That is their insecurity. They're projecting their insecurity onto you. And that has nothing to do with you. So just brush that off your shoulder and let it go, because those people, they're not worth your time. All right, next, again, Lil Bets. She asks, what is the biggest bang for your buck time-wise when learning French? Something that pays bigger dividends from the get-go. All right, this comes down to what is your goal with learning French? Are you learning French academically? Do you want to be able to read French literature? In that case, I would say work on your written French, your grammar, your exercises, different reading exercises, and work on everything that's going to make you a strong academic French learner if your goal is to read. But if your goal is to be a great tourist and maybe speak with French people, maybe you have more of an entertainment interest, you want to watch French TV shows in French without subtitles. In those cases, I would say your goal is going to be working on comprehension. I made a whole video on why comprehension should be your focus, especially if you're moving to France and your goal is to actually converse, because as I said, the Alliance Française prepared me very nicely, very well-rounded, but I couldn't speak well. And I couldn't understand people talking so fast like this. It just wasn't computing in my mind. So I would say if your goal is to actually speak French and converse and not just an academic goal, then you need to do things that are going to help you with conversation and actually hearing the language. Watch TV shows, all sorts of things that are going to familiarize your ear with the real language, with slang, the speed at which people actually speak, because book learning in the classroom will not prepare you very well for real French. All right, next, CFEF86 said, if you were starting to learn French all over again, what would your tips be? I've been trying to learn for 6 months. I feel like I know a lot, but I'm not confident. All right, first, hang in there, keep going. The first year, even 2 years are going to be the most difficult. The learning curve is like straight up. So take your time. Don't get discouraged. If you search on my blog for like French language posts, I have a bunch on like what to do if French is stressing you out, if you're not motivated, bunch of tips on there. If I were starting over knowing that in the future, I'd be moving to France. One, I would have studied French in college and taken it seriously. And two, I think I would have taken a more intensive language class at Alliance Française. As I said, I was doing it just for fun once a week. I would have probably taken a conversation intensive so I could get more comfortable speaking, get a little more confidence there. And I probably would have gotten a French tutor, just someone who could help refine some of the areas where I need a bit of help, and just gone in like balls to the wall, all out, just really learning French from the get-go, like with the impression that I'm going to do this, I'm going to get good because I'm moving to France. But as I said, I didn't know that I was moving to France. But yeah, it's normal to not feel confident. It's normal to have your confidence kind of ebb and flow. It's a journey for sure. And just keep doing it. Keep doing things that you find interesting, things that you like. Because let's say you absolutely hate doing written exercises, but that's what you're focusing on. You're just going to resent the language. So do things that you find fun. Maybe podcasts, like even if you like exercising, like YouTube exercise videos in French. If you like listening to true crime podcasts like I do, find one in French. Find an activity that aligns with what you actually like, and then just do it in French. All right, next up, we have a question from Rlava SSAUR 5333. And the person asks, is it true that people in Brittany speak a different type of French, the same for people in Canada? Okay, so I think there are two things going on here. One is a matter of accent, and one, I think you're alluding to the Breton, the language spoken in Brittany. First, to start with the accent, French people, you'll hear Canadians at like the butt of French people's jokes, like the Québécois accent and stuff. No, it's still French. There's different vocabulary. The accent's different, but it's still the French language. Someone from France could go to Quebec and speak with someone there, and they all understand each other. Maybe in rural areas, if it's a very, very, very heavy accent, maybe less so. But it's the same language. Just like someone from Scotland, England, Wales could go to Australia, have a conversation, could go to South Africa, could go to the United States, Canada. It's still English, although maybe different vocabulary, some different expressions, different accent, but it's still English. So that's the first thing, the dialect. Number two, in Brittany, kind of like you'll find down by Biarritz too, there's other languages spoken in France, although not super widely, other than French. So not a different accent in French, there's that too, but a different language. So down by Biarritz and Saint-Jean-de-Luz on the Spanish border, the Basque language. So that's not French, but you'll see stores and signs in the Basque language. In Brittany, we have Breton, and that is an old language. I would say it's probably, I think they still teach it in school a little bit, but like you'll find maybe more senior citizen aged people who are still able to speak it. But it's not widespread. Everyone there is going to speak French. You'll see signs translated into the Breton language, like road signs, place signs. But in Brittany, everyone speaks French. It's just there is that cultural heritage of the Breton language. Hope that makes sense. All right, next we have Lynn Gideon. Bonjour, I got my hubs to take a French class, and while I don't speak Spanish either, I've been around it most of my life in Texas and even took it in high school. I'm afraid I drove my French instructor nuts because some Spanish would slip in here and there. The question is, do you ever find yourself speaking in one language and the other just creeps in without your meaning for it to or even realizing it? I think what happens more often than not is if I'm speaking French, sometimes the English word will just pop in, and it's usually when I feel like I have a lot to say, I'm on a roll and I'm speaking quickly and I'll just be saying something, and then like the joiner word will be in English. While I'm speaking French, sometimes an English word might slip in, not because I don't know the French word, but just because I'm already 3 sentences ahead in my mind. In English, French words don't slip in by accident, but like there are some words that I know in French and I pronounce in French for my work, like the word reportage is only a word I use in French with French clients in photojournalism, a reportage. And I'm like, do English speakers, they say reportage? Or do they say reportage? I think they say reportage, but I only ever use the word in French. So I would just say reportage. Just things like that. Like I would think, oh, what is the English word for that? I don't even know because it's a word I learned in French. So just silly things like that. All right, the last one. I have trouble with verb conjugations as well as word order in French sentences. I'm learning on my own. Should I get workbooks? And that is from CBAHM. I would say it kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier regarding what is your goal with learning French? Is it academic? Are you just looking to read? Are you looking to speak French with French people when you come as a tourist? Or are you maybe looking to have major conversation practice because you're moving to France? Workbooks, if that's the way you learn best, something written, something you can have and refer back to. If that works for you, that doesn't really work for me. I need something a little bit more dynamic because I'll fall asleep staring at a piece of paper or a workbook and won't really commit it to memory. So it just depends on what your learning style is. I would definitely recommend watching shows if you really do want to understand and be able to speak and not just be able to read. But yeah, as much in the way of dynamic learning that you could bring to it, I think would be best. Again, that's just the way I learn. But yes, as much time as you have to dedicate, do as much as you can for yourself. So if that means a tutor, if that means a language learning app, just 20 minutes a day or 20 minutes twice a week, whatever it is, do the max that you can for whatever your goal is, because it's only going to get you where you want to go faster. All right. So with that, I want to thank you again for your questions. Thank you for being here. And if you haven't subscribed, I would love for you to do that. I'm approaching 100K and I really would love to get that YouTube plaque, that silver play button. It would mean a lot to me. So if you enjoy what I do, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you again for your questions and I'll see you here next time right here on We in France. Salut!